What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MSR Workshop. So today I have an exclusive unboxing for you from our friends over at Vector Optics. Yes, that is right. Vector Optics has sent us a new rifle scope for review. But it's not just any rifle scope. This is their brand new Vector Optics Tauron Gen 2 in 5 to 50 by 60. Yes, this is a 5 to 50 by 60 second focal plane rifle scope, meant for those F-class shooters, those bench rest shooters, those guys who just really want to reach out and touch something. So let's open this up, see what we've got in the box, and see what this is all about. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and open this guy up and see what we've got inside. In typical Vector Optics fashion, you are greeted with this little spec sheet here of some of the instructions on the scope itself. Also included in every scope that they sell, I believe, is their little lifetime warranty. Taking off the protective foam and setting that aside, we have the included scope. Vector Optics is now including little stickers with all of their new scope lines, which are pretty cool. We have got our threaded sunshade. Looks good. And our little pockets in here are all of the adjustment wrenches here. You've got your keychain range key for adjusting your turrets, tightening stuff down, without having to pull out a quarter and risking marring any of your turrets. Next, we have our Vector Optics warranty card. We've got a set of 34mm scope rings. These are their AccuX line of scope rings. Let's go ahead and pop these open, take a look at them. Seem to be really nice, high quality rings. Insides are real nice and smooth. And just overall fit and finish of these guys look very nice. I don't see anywhere the torque settings machined on these. So that would be very nice if they had them lasered on here somewhere, just so you don't have to hunt for torque settings if you were to remove this. Setting that aside, we have our Vector Optics Tauron manual. So as I continue to unbox this guy, I will go ahead and throw up a list of specific specifications for this guy here so you know all about it. Next little pocket here, you have a keychain, little baggie here with your cleaning cloth. And that is it for that. So let's pop the scope out and take a look and see what comes inside. So looking over the scope, first thing you'll notice is that you have this bungee style lens cap set. Now, interestingly enough, they have started including front and rear clear lens caps, which are kind of cool. But if you want something nicer, I would definitely invest in some high quality flip up caps. The front and back of the scope do appear to be fully multi-coated glass. They also appear to be threaded on both sides, so it is possible to fit front and rear threaded lens caps if you can find the right thread size. If I do happen to find the front and rear thread size, I will throw that in the description to see if there are any available threaded lens caps on the market. One of the nice new things that they put to kind of identify the newer line of scopes that Vector Optics is including is this nice looking blue ring right here. And this is where you have your Vector Optics Tauron GEN2 markings. Really large knurled throw lever here. Very, very smooth. Just kind of has a neat throw lever sound to it, not gritty or anything. Diopter turns as a diopter should. Fairly stiff, but that's okay because you don't want it moving once you have adjusted it. Moving to the middle of the scope, you'll notice it has two nice large windage and elevation knobs. One thing that your attention will be drawn to is this guy right here. And this is the first time I've seen one on a scope other than the March scopes. Now the March, what they use is called their shuriken locking turrets, where it's a little turn and you lock your top turret. This is actually one that you would just loosen up and or tighten, and that would lock your turret. So back it off a little bit, and to tighten it, just a little turn, and now it has locked it back down. So it does not move. Very, very tight. Just a little tiny loosen of it. A little bit more. And loosens that guy up. So that is really cool. Very, very easy to do. Done. Locked it back down. So very nice. I'm going to lock that guy back down. Windage turret. Push-pull. Style mechanism. Very nice audible clicks. Not as loud as some I've heard before, but still very nice. The knurling on this is very comfortable. Sometimes you can get really, really jagged ones because they want you to have them really, really grippy. These are a little bit smoother, but it's still ample stuff to hold on to, and very, very smooth. Turning over here to the illumination, you have 6 different levels of illumination. And this turns very, very smoothly. Some of these I've had have been way too tight, and it's really hard to turn without almost grabbing the whole thing, and then you end up knocking your parallax out of adjustment. Now, one important feature for me is that your parallax goes all the way down to 10 yards. And that makes it nice for being able to use your whole focal range up close instead of being forced to set it back at 25, sometimes 50 yards, depending on the type of scope that you're using. So 10 meter focal range for your parallax is a huge plus in my book. Now, they do not come with batteries. Obviously, you do have to supply your own CR2032 battery, but that's not a big deal. You can get those off of Amazon for a dime a dozen. So now we are at the part of the video where we get to test the glass and the clarity. And as you can see from this beginning shot, it was extremely bright and clear and crisp, and the colors just popped off the screen. It was actually so bright, in fact, that I'm having to use a neutral density filter. And what that allows me to do is actually stop up or stop down the amount of light that comes in, because if we didn't use that, you would have so much brightness coming in that you would just overexpose your shot and it would just blow out everything. And you'll see some examples here in just a second of what that looks like. But it's pretty crazy bright, and it really, really looks good. So starting off here, we have a professional camera color chart to take a look at. And You can see all these colors. Below it, you just have some little targets. Now there's a little piece of paper that kind of got blown off by the crazy amount of wind that's out here today when I was filming this, and that has a couple 177 pellet holes in it. So we'll start to zoom in here, and we'll zoom into about 15 power here. That's probably actually a little bit more. And get the focus. And you'll see the light just start to drop just a little bit. And that's natural for you to lose a little bit of light as you zoom in on some of these focal ranges on these scopes. But take into consideration, though, is I'm having to stop down the amount of light coming through. So your naked eye may not be able to completely discern where you start to lose light, because I am stopping this down. Now a camera sensor is much more sensitive to light loss, so when I zoom all the way in here, you can see it really drops off the light. But watch what happens when I let more light in with my neutral density filter here in just a minute, and it just gets crazy bright again. So this is about 25 power, 30 power. And up here at 50, you see it drop way back down. So we're going to back it out just a little bit here. And just take a look at our colors. It does still look really good, though. The colors are still bright and crisp and clear. Now here's maxed out at the 50 power. And ta-da! Here's all this light that it lets back in. And I'll rotate it a bit, and you can see it gets super, super bright. And that is just the amount of light this glass is letting in. So all through your focal range, it is just insanely bright and clear. See, it's starting to blow everything out right here, and this is just opened all the way up. So what I'll do is I'll start to stop it back down, just so it doesn't just overwhelm the camera, because I don't have the automatic exposure set. It is a fixed exposure. And as you can see, it way overexposes the camera here. So let's stop this back down to a reasonable level. Where we're letting normal amount of light in that you would see with your naked eye. Of course, that isn't it right there. That's a little bit too far, but I'm just making my way around, trying to find that good spot right there, and I think that looks pretty darn good. So let's go ahead and zoom back out and just kind of take a look at the rest of the parts of our target. Now, you can see down here is you can clearly see that little 177 hole over on the right side of the screen. Well, now you can't because I just moved it out of the way. There you go. Stop moving around for a second. And there is my little 177 hole. And I would say I'm at 25 power, 30 power, not even full all the way in. And it's really easy to pick up. And here is what it looks like cranked all the way up to our 50 power here. And I think that still looks really, really good. Now it's time to look at some distance objects here. And this is a radio tower that I have marked out to be about 550 yards away with my rangefinder, give or take a few yards. But as you can see, it's a fairly overcast day. I'm having to stop this down just so it doesn't blow it out, even though I am getting some sun through the clouds. It's still not the brightest day, which does make for some pretty good shots because I don't have any sun just glaring in and, you know, throwing some weird, you know, haze up on the lens or something like that. So moving in here about halfway, focusing on this water tower, focusing on all these details. You'll see those dishes. You can really make out all of the different shapes, the little screw holes on them. Those dishes aren't actually flat. They're kind of cone shaped. But you'll see the birds fly by every now and then. Got an airplane that flies by here in a minute. But still quite impressed with the resolution, the detail. And as we make it up farther the tower and farther distance, you can still see it keeps its clarity. Now, later on in this video, you'll notice that you get a little bit of haze kind of at the bottom half of the lens. That is actually not the camera. That is my camera setup, because just the way I think it moved just a tiny bit, and so it threw the bottom just a little bit out of focus. So don't pay too much attention to that. I'll actually flex it just a little bit and you'll see it go away here in a minute. But right here I'm just adjusting the exposure just a little bit because it is still pretty bright. So we'll let a little bit more light in and I'll check the focus here. And sorry for the little bit of shake. It was really, really ridiculously windy. And windy enough that I wasn't able to use my wind filter, so I'm just doing the voiceover afterwards, just so you guys can get some good audio. Now here's all the way in, and you'll see that little orange haze down there at the bottom. That's just my lens not being perfectly lined up with the scope itself. There's that airplane. But we'll get this focused in here. And I think that's pretty darn good. Probably could have gotten at a little bit more, but I still think that's real good. So let's go ahead and zoom back out and make our way to the top of this radio tower here, which I'm sure is farther than that 550 yards, because I marked it out at about halfway. So the top, I'm sure, is getting close to, 700-800 yards, possibly. And we've got some lights on the top that I'm going to zoom in all the way, and you'll just see how much light the scope lets in. It's a little bit overexposed, and that's just because my neutral density filter probably just needs to be adjusted a little bit. But once I zoom back into that higher magnification, my amount of light that drops down just a little bit, so it will be just good. And you'll see here in a minute when I flex my camera rig setup, that little haze will actually disappear from the screen. But right now I am just checking focus. So let's go ahead and move into another spot. You'll see that haze and me lifting up, and it went away. So there's what it looks like with it perfectly in line with my camera. And now it's just back out a little bit. But there's zoomed all the way in at that 50 power on the back side of that dish, and you are seeing all of those details and not losing any resolution. So here's a quick shot of one of these dishes from the side. You can see how pointed and cone shaped they are. They're not flat as you would think they are when you're looking at them from the road from your car. So yeah, with a high quality optic like this, you're really getting all of the detail that you would lose with a lesser quality optic. So next we're going to go ahead and mount this up to my 177 air rifle, do some precision shooting, see how easy and fast it is to get it on target and get it sighted in, and see how this performs on an actual gun. Alright guys, so we're going to see if we're on paper here and try to get this guy sighted in. This is my little backyard 19-yard range, and I'm using the JSB 13.43 Diabolo Exact, and these are the redesigns. And we are shooting the Scout air guns in .177 caliber. So let's go ahead and give this a shot and see where we're at. Okay, so first off, we're going to go up. Let's give that a shot. Pun intended. Before we adjust, let's do that a couple more times. So that was same hole. I would say that's right on the money. So that dialed in really quickly. Now let's try and shoot this at a couple more spots here, see if we're still on. Got a little bit of a breeze out here. There we go. So this is my Monday morning airgun target that I shoot every Monday, the little competitive airgun matches that I do. And this particular one is set up to shoot all of the gaps. So you see all those gaps and those lines? Well, I'm supposed to connect the dots. It's pretty complicated here, so let's see what we can do here. Nailed that one. So that would be considered a miss right there. I'll zoom in because I did not connect both lines, but that was partly my fault. And that was a flyer. I would say, guys, that is about as accurate as you're ever going to get. Everything looks great in this scope. It is crystal clear, looks really, really good. Let's back out just a little bit here. Now, once again, this is 15 power, and I'm using a little bit of digital zoom on my camera just because when I zoom in on the scope with my camera, it does get a little bit more blurry. So I want you guys to have the clearest picture possible. Now, it doesn't look like it on camera, but if I zoom in just a little bit, the center spot is just a little bit chunky for my liking. Now, they say it's a very, very small spot, but it seems just a little bit bigger to me, and that could just be my imagination. But not to complain, I have to nitpick because this is a review. But very, very good scope. I'm very impressed with the glass. The zoom range is awesome. Does not seem to get dark on maximum magnification at 50. Doesn't get dark much even at close range. Now, at long range, scopes should not drop off light much. Close range, you'll actually notice it more. So the higher the magnification on your scope at close range when you're zoomed in, the more light drop off that you're going to notice, just depending on the scope. So for instance, my March Magesta at 80 power at close range gets fairly dark, whereas I have a 60 power in another scope and it doesn't drop off nearly as much at close range. Now at long distance, the 80 is going to be much better, but close range you'll notice it more. So just for fun here, we're going to shoot out some links of this 3D printed chainmail. Absolutely no problem seeing my targets or shooting whatever it is that I want. Now, does it keep zero on a high recoiling rifle? I don't know. That is something to test out, but Vector Optics does include their lifetime warranty, so if you were ever to damage the scope with a recoil, I believe the warranty does cover that, so that's something to keep in mind. But for the price, this is fantastic. I don't think you're going to find this high a power scope in this quality and this price anywhere on the internet. This is probably the best priced 50 power scope that I know currently on the market right now. If you guys have any scopes that you would recommend over this one, or have any comments or experience with this range of scope power, or if you found a better price, just let me know in the comments below. Now currently this is on pre-order on Vector Optics' website. I will leave a link in the description below where there is a discount code and my link that does help out the channel a little bit and is a little bit of a discount off for these scopes. Currently, I believe the scope is already discounted, so that may not count. But check out Vector Optics if you have not, because they are really killing it with all of their Gen 2 releases. Better glass, better turrets, just better overall fit and finish build quality, and this is no exception. This is their Vector Optics Tauron 5-50 by 60 second focal plane scope. Check them out, guys.